Welcome to another episode of Handful of Leaves, and today we are very privileged to have Dr. Yeoh Kar Kheng. Fun fact, this is our third time recording the episode because of so many technical issues, and I think the very fact that Dr. Yeoh, you are here with us again is a testimony that you're very, very mindful as well as stable and equanimous. I think this is because of your meditation practice, I suppose. Lots to learn from you today. And for our guests who do not know you, even though you're a very prominent meditation teacher, could you start by sharing with us, how do you get to where you are today? Why do you start practicing mindfulness?
Okay, thank you, Kai Sing, and hello, everyone. So actually, it brings back about more than 20 years ago when I was a university student. That time I was at the age of 20 years old. I suffer from some mild depression and also sleeping issue. So I was eagerly looking for a way how to ease my monkey mind. And then I was introduced to Buddhist mindfulness meditation. You can call it a Satipatthana meditation. And in my university time, I know by Brother Lim Boon Cheng. I'm not sure whether you heard about his name. He recently just got elected into a member of parliament in Australia. He's a Malaysian Chinese. So Brother Lim, he brought me or introduced me to Vipassana meditation. And this is how I get started. And then I started to attend many different retreats in Malaysia, in Burma and Thailand, and learn from different Buddhist traditions. And then in year 2008, I went to Oxford to study for my PhD in organic chemistry. And because I'm a scientist, I'm now a university lecturer in Penang. So I study chemistry and I teach chemistry. And it's always my intention to introduce mindfulness or meditation in a more approachable way. So using a layman term, perhaps to connect it with science. So when I was in UK, in Oxford at that time, there was a very famous Oxford Mindfulness Center, so I was able to attend the 8 weeks MBCT course. It's called Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy course. And that was my first encounter with contemporary mindfulness, or sometimes we call it a secular mindfulness. And I very admire the way that they teach mindfulness without using very complicated Buddhist terms. And also the course is very structured, and they combine actually different meditation technique. You can see that from the Mahasi method, from the Goenka method, like body scan, Mahasi method will be mindfulness in daily life or walking meditation. They also have some mindful stretching, like yoga activities in the 8-week course. So, and also they bring in some modern psychology concept. The MBCT course, the main purpose is actually to prevent recurrent depression. And there is many books have been published on this topic. And then when I returned to Malaysia, I thought, oh, this is quite good. Especially this is very suitable for Malaysia context. And I think it's the same for Singapore as well, because we have multi-racial and multi-religions people around. So I thought, oh, in this way, if we can bring mindfulness to the university, to the hospitals, and then to the kids, it would be very nice without, having the Buddhism label. So after that, I started to conduct a mindfulness course in my university for the university lecturers and staff and some students as well. And this is how I started. And then eventually I started to offer mindfulness course, secular mindfulness course. I do not call it MBCT because I'm not an MBCT certified teacher. That time I call it EQ mindfulness, how to use mindfulness to develop emotional intelligence. Actually, I got this idea from Chek Meng Tan, a Singaporean. Someone passed me his book, Search Inside Yourself. And that book is is about how to develop emotional intelligence using mindfulness. I thought that would be fantastic because this is emotional intelligence is something that is very much needed by everyone, almost everyone. Okay, so I thought that would be a very brilliant ideas to bring this to the public. And of course, there is some requests as well when people know about them. I'm running mindfulness class in the USM. Some reporter did some interview with me, so it got some attention from the public. So therefore, I started to offer mindfulness course to the public in English and also in Mandarin. And eventually, I also set up a Malaysia Mindfulness Association. Okay, so I'm the founder and also the chairman, with the intention to bring mindfulness or to create the awareness, of mindfulness to the public. Of course, this what I mentioned is about secular mindfulness without using any Buddhism terminologies. So this is how I started, and I have been doing this. And also, one last thing, I eventually received the scholarship from Meng, okay, to be trained as a certified teachers to teach the Search Inside Yourself or SIY program. And also have been teaching this for a number of years in Malaysia and also China, Hong Kong, and different countries. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. When you say keep it circular, it reminds me of this particular saying by, I believe, Goenka, the breath knows no religion. So regardless of whether you're a Christian, Muslim, or Buddhist, whatsoever, you have this breath, you can be mindful. And that's something we're going to dive deeper into because mindfulness as a word has been quite popular these days. I think people use it as a practice for various reasons. I'm particularly curious about your own experience. What got you saying that this is something that I want to dive deeper into, and this is something beneficial to me? Is there a trigger point in your life?
Yeah, definitely, because the retreat experience that I got, really helped me a lot. As I mentioned earlier, so I got into mindfulness because I suffer from some emotional issues. Like I didn't know how to work with my emotions. For example, sometimes it's a worriness, sadness, and stress, and so on, and I couldn't sleep. So mindfulness meditation offer me a way on how to work with this emotion. Okay, so from then on, of course, my retreat experience that was very long. It was not easy at all at the beginning. So, but somehow after my second retreat, I start to got a deeper understanding and have what we call practical experience on how we can bring our mind back to the present moment and how to calm the mind and to understand about the nature of the mind. So for no doubts, I am very confident that it can help a lot of people because it had helped me a lot. Because before that, the mind was very messy, worrying about the futures or thinking about the past, So after I learned about mindfulness, I become more mindful, which means, in a simple term, I was able to stay at the present moment, and the mind become quite peaceful. And then when, for example, anger and worriness arises, I was able to notice it, and then just observe it without following the thoughts or emotions. So this is something that when you have got the experience, it gives you a lot of confidence in the Dharma. So when I had attended the 8 weeks secular mindfulness course, I think this is a brilliant way, because if you have attended a retreat before, you know how difficult it could be, especially you go with the empty mind is good. At the same time, you also have a lot of questions and a lot of confusions. And sometimes you have to figure out also, what does it mean by, the different Buddhist term. So I would say the secular mindfulness is a very good introduction. I just said it's an introduction to bring you to the door, or maybe to have a taste of mindfulness. And then from them on, after you have gained the technique or learned the way, then if we want to go deeper and you are a Buddhist, then of course we are most welcome to do so. But at the same time, when we are able to offer secular mindfulness, it opens doors for more people. In fact, I read a report, I think a number of years ago. He said in America, there is more than 20%. I'm not sure how true is it, more than 20% of the populations in America, they actually practice meditation or maybe mindfulness in some way. This in no way, in the history of humanity, this is something that never happened before. Because in the old time, of course, we do have a lot of meditators, but I think at this time, at our time, is in which that more people start to aware about mindfulness and meditations, and this is something that can help them, in various ways.
Definitely. I also agree. I didn't know that meditation can be taught. So when my friend first asked me for my very first retreat, it was a weekend retreat. My first thought is, I thought just breathe only, got so difficult. Just sit down, close your eyes, right? Then when I started my very first retreat, it was under the Buddhist context. And wow, it was really like my eyes open, the doors also open. And then I leaned closer to the Dhamma. Of course, we are not saying that meditation or getting people to learn mindfulness is a way to convert, because it is, in a very secular sense, a good way to manage our emotions, like you mentioned. However, also, I think sometimes we run into the danger of saying that Buddhist mindfulness is also like secular mindfulness, because clearly there is a distinction. And I believe not a lot of people know about that. So can you shed some light about this? Because you have gone through both paths, right? The secular and the Buddhist context. What's the difference between mindfulness in both?
Okay. There are actually similarities and also differences. Okay. So in so-called modern mindfulness circle, the definition I normally use is this. Okay. Mindfulness is about how to pay attention to your body, mind, and also sometimes including the environment, okay, with an attitude of curiosity and kindness. Okay. It's about how you pay attention to your physical and emotional experience, if I had to say. Why do we include environment? Because sometimes, for example, I give you an example. A lot of time I was also not very mindful when I went to the shopping mall and park my car. Every time I make what we call, I took a pictures so that I can remember where I parked my car. Okay, because
that's very
I do
smart.
not have,
I always forget also.
you see, so you see, mindfulness, in a way, in the Buddhist terminology, we call it sati. Okay, sati, S-A-T-I. Sati sati actually means not forgetful or remembrance. Okay, so for example, after you park your car and then you was just so excited to go to the shopping mall and you totally forgot where did you park your car. Okay, that is what we call absent-minded. Okay, absent-mindedness. Okay, so your mind is not fully present. So that because your mind is not fully present, or you are not very mindful, so that you couldn't remember where did you park your car. Okay, so we need this in this way. When we define mindfulness in this way as the ability to remember, or sometimes we use a present moment mindfulness. These two, although they are not the same, but they are interrelated. Because your mind is not present, therefore, or you are not mindful. When we say mindful in English, okay, how do we understand? For example, when we step down from the train, you say, get off from the train, we say, be mindful of your step, which means you need to be careful. It also has the meanings of carefulness and also mindfulness, isn't it? So this is how we use the term mindfulness. Actually, whether it's Buddhist mindfulness, sometimes we cannot call it Buddhist mindfulness to make it more correct, because mindfulness does not belong to Buddhism. If you read the sutta, you will know that even the Buddha agree, mindfulness is a very important ability For example, if you need to become a very successful person, like a businessman or the king, mindfulness is a very important what we call criteria that you need to have. That is, so I can't remember the sutta, but I'm very sure there is one sutta the Buddha mentioned about how to become a successful person. One of the quality is mindfulness. Okay, because we need mindfulness for almost everything. An example that I shared just now, parking the car, isn't it? If you do not have mindfulness and you become absent-minded, okay, then you have to spend a lot of time, looking for your cars. Okay, so that is the meanings of mindfulness. Let me repeat again, not forgetfulness. And then sometimes we call it, some teachers also say it's a present moment mindfulness, present moment awareness. How are these two connected? Okay, I'll give you another example, similar to the parking car example, but maybe, okay, when you get home, you simply just put your handphone or mobile phone somewhere. Okay, because that time you are not fully present, so you couldn't remember where you have put your handphone, isn't it? So if you remember, for example, now I have my mobile with me here. At that time when I put my handphone, I was fully present. Okay, that is called present moment awareness. I'm clearly aware where I put my handphone. So after that, I can easily recall and remember where I put my handphone, isn't it? So that is present moment awareness. The first thing, present moment awareness. For you to be able to recall where you have put your handphone, that ability to recall is what sati means. Okay, because in Buddhist context, sati actually doesn't mean present moment awareness. Okay, one of my teachers, which is who is Venerable Akachita, okay, he defined mindfulness in 4 ways. Okay, using 4R. 4R. Okay, the first is remember. So for us to be able to remember, we need present moment mindfulness. Isn't it? If you're absent-minded, you are not able to remember. So remember is like happening at the present moment. But when we're talking about present moment, present moment has passed. Isn't it? Because time is like in this way, isn't it? So the first R, that is the first R, remember. Second is to remind. Okay, so especially in the practice of mindfulness, to start with, we always have a meditation object, like the breath, like the whole body awareness. Okay, so at first when we started to meditate, okay, we bring our attention to the breath or to our body. Okay, after that, our mind starts to get wonders. So we have to remind ourselves to come back to the present moment, to remember your object, which is your breath or your whole body awareness. And then a lot of time, we become forgetful in daily life. Although we know we want to lead a mindful life, we want to be mindful on, if possible, everything that we do, brushing the teeth, walking, on whatever daily activity you do, that needs a lot of reminder, which means we need to keep on reminding ourselves to bring our attention back to our body, back to observe the mind. So the second R of mindfulness is to remind. Okay. The third R is to recollect. Recollect, many times we use for something in the past, isn't it? Which is true. When we have mindfulness, we will be able to recollect. For example, to recollect where did you park your car, that is a recollection, is it? So the last R, which is to retrospect. Retro means to look back. Spect means to inspect. Why do we call it retrospect? Retrospect, as I mentioned, when we observe our thoughts, okay, thought has already arisen. No, we're aware there is something in the past. So we actually look back, but this is the immediate past. Of course, this has gone into very technical, but mindfulness does have these 4 meaning, very closely interrelated meaning. I repeat, the 4 are remember, remind, okay, recollect, and retrospect. Okay, these are the 4R. So this gives the meanings of mindfulness, if you like to say, in the Buddhist context. Okay, so but this, as we have understood, this 4R, this is nothing to do with Buddhism. Okay, this is nothing to do with any religion, because this is the ability that you can say that we need this mindfulness for our daily, any activity that we do, we need this. Okay, but what makes Buddhist mindfulness different from secular mindfulness is what we call the right mindfulness. In Pali term, we call it samma sati. Okay, so there is a right in front there. Of course, in the Buddhist text, there is also a wrong mindfulness. This is called a micca sati. Okay, so we may dive more into that. What is the difference between mindfulness and right mindfulness? What qualifies for us to call it right mindfulness? Right mindfulness, we cannot just talk about right mindfulness alone, because right mindfulness have to be supported by the other 7 noble path factors. Okay, do we call it factors? Noble path, yeah.
Eightfold path.
yeah, noble eightfold path, yes. But when we're talking about noble eightfold path, the noble path consists by 8 elements, not 8 different paths. Okay, so we have the right view, we have the right thought, sometimes we call it right intention, and then we have the right speech, right action, right livelihood, is it? And then we have the right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Okay, isn't it? These are the 8 elements of the noble eightfold path. Therefore, we call it eightfold. Okay, path is one path, not 8 path. Okay, so the path is consisted by eightfold. Okay, so when we're talking about right mindfulness, okay, so which means the Buddhist mind, if we really want to call it Buddhist mindfulness, then right mindfulness is Buddhist mindfulness. Okay, so right mindfulness need to have the base of right view. So what is right view? Right view is to understand about the 4 noble truths. Okay, so this will become a Buddhist lecture already. Okay, to understand about, in short, what is suffering, what causes suffering, the cause of suffering. Okay, and then the end of the suffering, there is a possibility to end the suffering, and the path that is leading to the end of the suffering. Okay, which is the noble eightfold path. So right view, which means we see things in simple way based on the 3 characteristics. The first one is dukkha, suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Okay, even unsatisfactoriness or dukkha doesn't deny happiness. It just tells us even happiness itself is impermanent. Okay, we cannot have full control on what is happening, because whatever things that is happening is all based on causes and condition. Okay, so that is what we call the right understanding. So, for example, if we like to distinguish between so-called modern mindfulness and Buddhist mindfulness, for enable you to practice Buddhist mindfulness, you need to have a very deep or very good knowledge, not only theoretically is the starting point, but you can say that very deep knowledge or right understanding. You really truly understand what does the Buddhists call it, the right understanding. Right understanding is about how you look at things as impermanence. Everything also have the impermanent natures. We call it anicca. Everything also have the not self nature. We call it anatta. What is not self or non-self? Self or atta in Buddhism means you have full control. Okay, anatta means you do not have full control. Why do you do not have full control? Because things, or we call it the body and mind experience, arises due to causes and condition. I give you an example. Very simple example. We know that we grow older day by day. Okay, so the Buddha said, illness is sickness, old age is sickness, death is sickness, even birth is sickness. We can't help but to face with impermanence. So when we get old and when we get sick, you get very frustrated and you cannot accept the so-called this reality of getting old or getting sick. That is what we call without right understanding. Okay, when we have right understanding, you are already mentally prepared for it. You have already know the body will get old, the body will get ill, the body will die. Okay, so this is right understanding. So mindfulness means to remember. You still remember? We define mindfulness as to remember, to remind yourself this is the reality of life. So when we are facing with this, we recall or we remind. So we need mindfulness to strengthen our right understanding. After we have this right understanding, then only possible we have right thoughts, which is the second noble path factors, or sometimes we call it right intention, so that you do not reject, you do not fight with what is happening. You see, just now I mentioned about the 4 physical aspects of the dukkha, and then we have another 4 aspects, which is a mental aspect. Not getting what you want. Okay, and then what else? Not getting what you want, and then facing with something that you don't want.
Being parted from.
Disparted from your loved one, is it?
Yes.
So we can remember we learn all this from the Dharma class. But how does this understanding, what we call, get rooted in our mind? We just learn it. We can even recite, we can memorize very well. Okay, but that is not
whether we internalize is a different story.
We didn't internalize it. We didn't embody it. We call it. So of course, there is a process of learning, because we know in Buddhism, when we want to develop a wisdom, there are 3 ways. Sutta Manya Panya, we're reading from the books or we listen from the teachings by the great teachers. And then Cinta Manya Panya, by reflection. And then Bhavana Manya Panya, which is by meditation. So we internalize it. So when we practice Buddhist meditation or Buddhist mindfulness meditation, one of the way is to remind and remember when we are facing with pain or thoughts, we are not chasing it away. We develop this understanding that thoughts arises because of cause and condition. So that once we have understood it, we bring in right understanding or right view, samadhi, into our practice. When we have right understanding, then right thoughts as a result. Right thought is what? The thoughts of ahimsa, okay? Which means in a simple term, it's the thoughts of loving kindness, the thoughts of acceptance. We do not reject, we do not afraid, okay? We do not create enmity with what is happening, which means in simple terms, we do not reject. So, which means it's a kindness and curiosity. We need kindness, curiosity, we need acceptance, we need non-judgmental awareness. Although in secular mindfulness, we do not explicitly use the term, right thoughts, but in fact, what we are trying to develop is the quality of right thought. But because in the secular context, we cannot bring in the Buddhist concept of right mindfulness, like anicca, dukkha, anatta. So if you are a Buddhist practitioner, and at the same time, you are a mindfulness teacher, of course, there are various skillful means we can introduce this concept in a non-Buddhist way. Okay, so I always tell my students, so when you observe an emotion, that you just know that the emotions are just a temporary phenomena. The emotions are changing. This is not permanent. And then you cannot control emotion, because emotion arises due to cause and condition. So, even they are Buddhist or non-Buddhist, they can understand this basic concept. Okay, so it's
Definitely.
just
I think
that when we,
sometimes when we package in a religious context, people are less receptive, even though it's beneficial to them. I think without getting into too much technicalities of the Noble Eightfold Path, because I'm pretty sure that's another lecture altogether, please attend Dr. Kar Kheng's, what's it called? Dharma talks, as well as a lesson if you want a full course. But if I were to understand, to simplify, I think the importance of understanding the difference between secular and Buddhist mindfulness is really the motivation and the intention. You brought out Noble Eightfold Path, right? That is the path to enlightenment, which is freedom from suffering. And I suppose not everyone wants to meditate to gain enlightenment, but they want to meditate to be free from some kind of affliction, to be more peaceful, to have less anger, to be able to concentrate. So I guess that's where packaging it in a more circular form would make it more palatable. But for listeners who are interested to go beyond that, to say, okay, now I have the right concentration already, I have right mindfulness, I can do the 4R, then what is next? Of course, we always say what's next, we want to become. That's also part of the learning, right? How do we have the right intention to renounce, let go of becoming or non-becoming, which is a separate lecture altogether. So am I right to say, if we were to put it in brief, the Buddhist mindfulness, even though we say right mindfulness, doesn't mean that secular mindfulness is wrong, but it's really because it stems from, like you say, foundation of morality. So can we have our virtue? Because it will affect our meditation, right? Whether our mind is calm, did we do bad things, then it would, keep repeating in our head. Then also with the right mindfulness, it would help to allow us see things clearer with wisdom. So it fits, which is a very beautiful cycle. I think Buddha was a genius. And in this context, it's really about practicing right mindfulness to be completely free from suffering. Is that a right way to understand?
yes, it's true. As you said, what is the major difference between the Buddhist mindfulness and secular mindfulness? One of these is the motivation. Of course, the highest aim for Buddhists is the final liberation or nibbana. But as you said, that is the highest aim. Doesn't mean that, the lower aims, which is like stress reduction, to be more happy, is wrong. Okay, because the Buddha, in fact, in the sutta also mentioned one of the fruits or benefits of mindfulness and clear comprehension, sati and sampajanya, is the present life happiness. Okay, we actually no need to go beyond the present life. If you do not believe in rebirth, for example, that is also, you can feel the benefit itself right here and right now, which is the reduction of suffering. Okay, so it may not be leads to the end of the suffering, but it's a temporary end of suffering. Okay, so in this way, even in the secular mindfulness, we have this motivation and intention. Want to be more happy, want to be more calm, and then want to be more peaceful. So there's nothing wrong in the way. So as you have pointed out, although we say there is a right mindfulness and a wrong mindfulness, which is miccha sati, what miccha sati mean doesn't mean it's a morally wrong. It's just that this is not the right mindfulness, not the right mindfulness that will lead you to the final aims. Okay, so for example, when we practice the secular mindfulness for stress reduction, for preventing recurrent depression, or for developing emotional intelligence or enable leadership, this is not wrong. Okay,
But it would be wrong if because I hear this analogy before, it would be wrong if you practice mindfulness, if you use it to do something unwholesome. Because even burglars, they are very mindful, right? Like, wow, I have to walk very slowly. They have to pay attention, remember, okay, which passcode, where to enter the door, etc. But precisely when we say right mindfulness, it stems from ethics and morality. So I suppose it's okay if it's wholesome, because it's stress reduction is pretty wholesome.
Yes, you are right. Yeah, definitely. If you are doing this, as doing some unwholesome thing with mindfulness, that is definitely called wrong mindfulness. Okay, but if you just do it for so-called like to become more happy, to develop your skill, then that is wholesome mindfulness. We call it wholesome mindfulness.
Or even like to relax, right?
Yeah, because it related to some wholesome quality of the mind. Okay, so that is the differences, as you pointed
That's
out.
interesting. So I'm wondering, right? Some people tell me that, hey, cooking is meditation for me, or eating, singing, and swimming. So they have all these different activities which they define as meditative. So can you actually practice mindfulness without formally meditating?
Yes, definitely. Whether in the Buddhist way or in the secular way, we always encourage people, especially mindfulness practitioners, to bring in or to integrate their mindfulness into their daily life. As you said, when you are cooking, when you are walking, when you are eating, so you bring, the present moment awareness. You can say it when we say present moment awareness, it's also involved it also includes some mental focus. Is it? We become more focused. Focus in a way is not like one pointedness focus, okay? But you are fully aware on what is happening while you are cooking. You are fully present. You're aware that your whole body is standing, your whole body is sitting. So that is in the Satipatthana Sutta. Okay.
Or some people say in the flow.
You can say in the flow. In the flow is more to dynamic meditation, okay, or dynamic concentration, which means your mind is fully focused, but that actually doesn't mean it's a mindfulness. It's just a result of mindfulness. There is a difference between mindfulness and mental focus. Okay, mental focus is the result of mindfulness.
So there needs to be some form of effort, like I deliberately be mindful and aware of my cooking rather than, I'm just so absorbed in the cooking itself.
Yes,
is that correct?
You are right. Deliberate awareness. So for it to call it mindfulness, most of the time we need this deliberate attention. Okay, so mindfulness need to be cultivated and developed. It's not something you are born with that. Okay, what we are born is not mindful because we always forgetful.
Distracted, yeah. People attention span very, very short also.
Yes.
And I'm wondering then, if you say all this can be meditative, right? And we can cultivate in our daily life, is there a benefit to just sit like formal meditation, close your eyes on a cushion?
Of course, before you can actually integrate your mindfulness very effectively in your daily life, I would say the formal practice is the foundation. Because in formal practice, you see, when we do sitting meditation or standing meditation or walking meditation, we are in, if I like to say, is in a protected environment, which is more conducive, isn't it? And you are sitting still, okay? So you will be able to be more mindful. Your mindfulness have a shorter gaps. Okay, so after we have developed this, and then after we open our eyes and then continue with our daily activities, so that will be easier. Rather than you say, I just do daily mindfulness is enough, but when I ask you to sit, then you are not able to sit still. Okay, which means your mindfulness, the foundation is not strong. So we need actually both. One, we call it formal practice. One, we call it informal practice. And the best thing is to combine both. If you can do formal practice like 10 to 15 minutes or even longer per day, and then you can see the differences between, just do daily mindfulness. Okay, so both supporting each other.
Yeah, I completely agree. Based on personal experience as well, when I started going for longer retreat, then I really got the opportunity to get to a point where my mind is still, because sometimes, when I try to be mindful in day-to-day life, no foundation, then still want to be still, it's very easy to get agitated. But once I get past that stage, I think it's also the faith and confidence, right? Wow, it's possible. Whatever the Buddha said, this is true. And that's when I experience it by myself, then, move beyond, go closer and closer to something that is more integrated to day-to-day life. I think that's a lot more practical rather than just jumping straight into the battlefield.
Yes, as you said, so one of the quality of the Dhamma, as we recite, is a viditable, is to experience individually by oneself. Is it?
Yeah, that's correct. So people cannot meditate on your behalf also.
And then it makes you more confident. It's not only about a book knowledge or about something that we read, okay? It's about something that we can truly experience. For example, when we read the Satipatthana Sutta, which is the discourse on the establishment of mindfulness, okay? So when you read that, the Buddha gives a verse instruction on how to develop your mindfulness. One of these will be mindful when you are standing, be mindful when you are sitting, be mindful when you're walking, and be mindful when you're lying down. Okay, it's specifically mentioned in the sutta itself. And then we have a session on clear awareness or clear comprehension. That is about mindfulness in daily activities. Be mindful or be fully aware when you are turning your head. Be fully aware when you're putting on your robe. If you're a monk, lay people, we're putting on your t-shirt, isn't it? So on everything that we do, or even when you speak, when you go to toilet. So these are actually mentioning in the sutta. So when you practice it and you feel that, oh, it's true. Previously, I always do this activity without mindfulness. Now I do it with mindfulness. Doesn't mean you have to do it very slowly to get me right.
I was going to say that.
So you just have to remind and remember, when you walk, you can feel that your mind is more stable. Okay, that is the quality of, we call it samadhi, isn't it? You can call it composure. Okay, your mind become more composed and more stable, and you feel it. When you feel it and you experience it, then you want to do it more, because you, in a way, we like this experience. It's no wrong to like this experience, because you find that your mind become more peaceful. You become more aware. You become less agitated. And then this is what prompted you to practice more. That is what we call to practice the Dharma in daily life. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes the litmus test is just when you walk into the kitchen, do you remember why you go into the kitchen? I know sometimes also open the fridge, what I want to take? Why am I here? So that means no mindfulness already.
Yes. So when we are aware we are not mindful, that is mindfulness. So we keep on, notice that how our mind get into absent-mindedness, is it? Get absent-minded. And then that is awareness. So do not afraid to be not mindful. The more that you're aware that you're not mindful, that is mindfulness. That is a way on keep on our practice. Yeah.
Wow, that is so powerful, because I know sometimes when, like, say I'm absent-minded, then I keep telling myself, why am I so absent-minded? Then it can be quite demoralizing and I would kind of throw in the towel, right? You reminded me of a saying by Sharon Salzberg. So she's also a very prominent meditation teacher. She said, the moment that you're aware that your mind has drifted, she called that the magic moment, because in that moment you have a choice whether to bring the mind back or whether to continue wandering. And having that choice is so powerful. So I thought, I actually wanted to ask you the question, how to sustain a practice, but I thought this is something really interesting to keep reminding ourselves, hey, it's part of a journey. The fact that I'm aware, I'm progressing. Yeah. I would like to kind of summarize or like end off this session or episode with you by asking you if there is any way to know whether we are progressing besides what you have just mentioned, so that we can feel a little bit more encouraged and find some yardsticks or milestones along the way.
Yeah, this is a very good question. In fact, this is the yardstick that we should measure our progress on mindfulness meditation. It's not how long you are able to sit, okay? How much fantastic experience you are able to experience, okay? It's not about that, okay? Because these are all temporary and momentary. After you had that experience, so blissful, so mindful, and then you are looking for more, is it? And then there is a grit in there, okay? So the real yardstick is to see how much our greed, hatred, and delusion is getting less and less. And then more wisdom, more compassion, more peaceful and calm you are. Okay, you can ask the people around you or your family member, they will tell you. Okay,
family member usually accurate.
Okay, so this is how we can measure our progress. Okay, is when we encounter with problems, previously we will get mad. Okay, we will get very worried. Okay, now because we are more mindful, we are more mentally ready, and we have this right view and right thoughts. Okay, so our defilement getting less and less, which means you become less greedy, okay, less anxious, and then and so on. Okay, that is the real yardstick that you can measure your progress.
Yeah. And I suppose that's also the Buddhist way, right? Because I've seen so many secular mindfulness meditation centers or teacher, I'm not going to name names, but sometimes the draw is that, oh, you will be able to get these magical experiences, or perhaps it would make you become more successful, etc. Not wrong. I think we need all of this to function in our very conventional material life to succeed, etc. But if we can understand that all these are fleeting and transient, then we can move past that. So we'll still have our corporate success or our worldly success, but we can also sustain the real happiness within, which I thought is very powerful. So thanks for clarifying that misconception that it's not just clocking the hours, because I used to be that person, just like, wow, I start meditation already. How long can I sit? Then a lot of willpower, but more and more hatred towards myself. It's like, hey, how come the mind not still, etc. So when I also first heard lesser greed, hatred, and delusion, then wow, it's such a brain or mind shift moment, because I realized I've been doing it wrong all this time. So I guess that very, very nicely wraps up. And I hope that's also a good takeaway for our listeners who are just beginning or even advanced meditators, a good reminder. So practice the 4 R's in our day-to-day life. Now it's my teza. Remember, remind, recollect, and retrospect. Yes, I have a little bit of mindfulness throughout the podcast. Thank you so much, Dr. Kar Kheng. Is there any other things you'd like to say to our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think it's whether you practice secular mindfulness or Buddhist mindfulness, please continue. Okay, please don't give it up. Okay, because I can see mindfulness can really be very helpful and useful in any context. Okay, so when you need to give a public speech, okay, you need to give a corporate presentation, you need a very calm and mindful mind as well on whatever thing that you do. So please continue, and I hope to see you again in futures.
Yes, definitely. And do search up Dr. Kar Kheng if you want to find out more about the Noble Eightfold Path or how to get started with the techniques of meditation. Today is really just a teaser. There's so much more. So more links in the show notes as well as resources. Thank you for listening. And meanwhile, stay happy and wise.
Thank you.
Thank you.